5 Live Formula One.
Hello and welcome to the Bahrain International Circuit. We are standing in the paddock outside the Red Bull garage, which you might be able to hear has music blaring out of it. The atmosphere is obviously good in there. They have just taken pole position. Max Verstappen on pole for the Bahrain Grand Prix. I'm joined by Alice Powell, racing driver and broadcaster, our lead commentator, Harry Benjamin, as well. The paddock's beautiful, isn't it, guys? I mean, we've got the music, the soundtrack from Red Bull, but as you look down the paddock, it's not bustling, it's not heaving, is it, Harry? But lit up beautifully with all the palm trees twinkling.
Yeah, it's quieting down a bit now, which is nice. The temperature's certainly dropped, and it has been nippy throughout the weekend here. But yeah, the music is blaring from Red Bull. Lots of team personnel having their dinner and food and debriefing as well. Some team hospitalities happier than others, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I think that is fair to say. You're right, it is a bit chilly. It's been cold all weekend. You guys have been in the commentary box all cosy and warm. I've been out here shivering, doing the job of pit lane reporter.
Someone's got it.
Honey. Alice, Max Verstappen on pole position. Does it feel like this is just an extension of 2023? We're picking up exactly where we left off?
I wanted to say no, but I have to say yes. I mean, more importantly, how can they work with that music in there?
They're
So
always
loud.
the ones with the music
Yeah,
blaring,
Red
aren't
Bull
they?
got the banging playlist.
Yeah, they have. They've got the tunes on. But actually, I think Max's radio kind of throwed it to, well, it disheartened me even more, really, because he seemed a little bit shocked at the pace and shocked at the fact that he had propelled himself sort of, in free practice 3, he was 3rd, then he was in free practice 2, 6th, and he's propelled himself 2 tenths clear up the road. He was a little bit shocked, and it's almost, he had that comment to his engineer that was almost like somewhere along the lap he would have said, this is not going to be P1, and clearly it was, and Charles Leclerc was really disappointed.
This is the thing, throughout practice, I think we're all lulled into a bit of a false sense of security because we all came in thinking, yes.
Security being that there's going to be wheel-to-wheel action in 2024.
Exactly. But it looked tighter than we thought it would be. After, the rhetoric after testing, Verstappen and Red Bull were going to have pace in hand, and even throughout 2020, we thought, well, we haven't really seen the full extent of what Verstappen's doing in this Red Bull, because quite frankly, he didn't need to show us 100% of what was going on in that Red Bull. But practice looked tight, and that gave us a little bit of hope that it wasn't going to be a complete walkover, but in the end, he did do it with a few tenths in hand, and he was clever about it as well. He was so fast in Sector 1, and that's because he was timing it perfectly with getting a tow from a car in front. I think he managed to get
Oscar Piastri, wasn't it?
Piastri, and I think also Carlos Sainz is also doing it as well. But
he was quick to say, though, that tow didn't account for the gap at the front. So
well, it would have helped, surely. DRS plus a bit of tow down the main straight, and an already quick car is going to be pretty unbeatable. So I love the fact that he thinks that way, though, as well. He's like, I'll nip in to get the tow.
Sainz did get a tow as well, though. Sainz got a little bit of a tow, and he's been ahead of Leclerc pretty much all weekend and ended up being 4th, a tenth off his, exactly,
Classic
1/10 off his teammate. So yeah, the tow, though, I do agree with you. The tow would have helped.
But look, it's tight behind, and that's really good.
Well, I'm going to keep looking at the front, though, because Max Verstappen's time actually wasn't the quickest of the qualifying session as a whole today. Charles Leclerc actually was faster in Q2. If he'd set that time, he would have taken pole. That's the kind of weird scenario we find ourselves in. So the Ferrari is quick. It is up there. It could challenge the Red Bull. Can it challenge them consistently, though, do you think? Or Max Verstappen's just going to be able to turn it up when he needs to throughout the season?
Ferrari, I mean, it's encouraging actually the one lap pace, because there was talk that they had perhaps sacrificed that slightly in the pre-season to get better at the long run, because they went on a run of pole positions towards the end of last year, but they would fall back in the races, and Charles Leclerc wouldn't be able to convert them. They seem to have got better long run pace, which is going to be the main factor during the race. Can they keep their tyres in check? Can they manage the grading on the tyres and the degradation to be able to manage the race pace against Red Bull? It seems like it's nip and tuck. Ferrari and Mercedes seem quite close at the moment. I think one Red Bull is beatable. I'm not sure about the other one, though.
Yeah, Sergio Perez down in P5 in the second Red Bull. And, of course, it's Max Verstappen taking pole position. We doubted whether he could, but, of course, he's proved us all wrong, taking the first pole of 2024. Let's hear from the three-time world champion. Max, congratulations. It seemed like it took you a little bit of time this weekend to get the car where you wanted. Is it because the car is actually more difficult to drive this year?
No, I think it's just, with the wind direction and in general the wind being quite strong, it's just a little bit more difficult. Probably for everyone, but it just seemed like for us it was a little bit harder than we thought it would be to get the balance right for the car. Overall still happy, of course, in qualifying. But overall I think this weekend has been a little bit more difficult than I thought it would be.
And we heard Christian coming on the radio to congratulate you. How is the feeling in the team today? And have you been chatting with Christian in the lead up to qualifying?
Yeah, but we are very performance driven as a team, and that's what we are also all try to focus on.
Thank you. Good luck tomorrow. So I think Max Verstappen was pretty diplomatic with his answer there, talking about Christian Horner coming onto the radio to congratulate him. It's been an interesting weekend already. I mean, we're only on Friday. I'm calling it a weekend. We're racing on Saturday. It's sort of feeling like a weekend.
3 weeks,
I'm confused by the days most of the times. This has really thrown me off.
I don't know if it's New York or New Year, quite frankly. But Christian Horner here, there's been a lot of chatter, of course. He's been making and dominating the headlines. Still on the pit wall, though, and coming onto the team radio, which I didn't think I would hear this evening, I have to say, but trying to present unity within the team, Alice.
Yeah, no, 100%. We were all sort of shocked and looking at each other in the commentary box when he came on the radio. And actually, I've been walking up and down the paddock quite a lot this weekend, and as expected, I've barely seen him. Usually Christian likes doing an interview. You'll often see him in front of at least several cameras across, especially after qualifying and even after the practice sessions as well, actually, and I haven't seen him once. So he is keeping a low profile, certainly is a big noticeable difference there. But the atmosphere around the paddock, people are still whispering and talking about it as expected. But there is a buzz. There's certainly the buzz, but of course it's the first race of the season. But yeah, Max was very diplomatic there.
He was, and I asked him, as you heard, about whether this car is more difficult to drive. It does look different, Harry. I have to say, when I've been in the pit lane, it's such a sort of different-looking car around the engine cover area. It's weird, isn't it? They've got to get to grips with some new machinery. We almost thought it was just going to be a simple step from last year's car, but it does look different.
No, Adrian Newey and designing what many are calling a piece of art once again with the RB20, and they had such a great advantage last year that the obvious expectations coming into this season was that everybody was going to just try and copy as much as they could from the Red Bull design, and that has come to fruition. There's a lot of Red Bull inspired designs from 2023 on a lot of cars up and down the grid, and then for Red Bull to come out with a tweaked design, there seems to have been overhyped in pre-season in terms of it's not a complete overhaul. They haven't completely gone to Mercedes zero pod esque designs that they introduced when the new ground effect regulations came in, but they've got these vertical inlets on the side, and it's a lot sort of tighter, and it looks mean, I think, but it also looks like it can be driven at pace, and Verstappen is not afraid already to ring that car around. But throughout practice, and yes, this isn't uncommon for Verstappen, does complain on the radio, particularly when it comes to upshifting in the gearbox. Equally, Perez also had the same complaint across the weekend as well. So it's not completely bulletproof by the sounds of things. But once again, Adrian Newey has designed the car to beat. And it goes to show that you could never get complacent in Formula One. You've got to constantly keep moving, because eventually the rest will catch up with you. And the longer we get into this regulation cycle, the closer it will get before 2026 and it resets.
Yeah, and Sergio Perez saying that obviously this was the first time that they'd run on such low fuel. They think, or he thinks at least on his side of the garage, they're going to be stronger in race pace, and they weren't expecting pole today. So he said Max did an incredible job, but I sort of feel like that's what we were all expecting, wasn't it? We were expecting him to be on pole.
And Perez should have been right there with him.
Absolutely.
And that's the biggest worry. Yeah, he can say, yeah, we weren't in the hunt for pole. Well, you should have been. Oh, well, we'll be better in the race. Well, you should be, because you have the same car, and this is worrying for Perez at this early stage, because he's already been told he's out of contract at the end of the year, and if he's not closer to Verstappen in qualifying, it is tight, yeah, but they have an advantage, and he should be utilising that. He should be Max Verstappen's rear gunner, and he's not started off well. No,
and instead he's behind both the Ferraris and a Mercedes and his teammate. So let's look at the front row then. Alongside Max Verstappen, it will be Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. Frustrations from Charles Leclerc, talking on the radio, saying he didn't really agree with what they were planning for him in Q1. What do we make of what Ferrari have done over the winter break, Alice? Have you been interested to see the car development and how they're going to take it to Red Bull?
Yeah, I have, but I always find, especially with the last several Grand Prix here, they're kind of fairly strong round here in Bahrain. Charles Leclerc has sort of been a little bit on the back foot compared to his teammate in terms of pace-wise. It's Sainz that started off the first three sessions at least, not including qualifying of course, where he's sort of been lagging a little bit behind Sainz, but he really did that lap. I have to say, in Q2 was impressive. After you say, if he set that lap in Q3, he would have been on pole, but he just didn't string his sectors together. They are lacking behind Max Verstappen in the first sector, so if they manage to sort that out somehow, Charles will be there. But looking at the race pace, I think McLaren are ahead of them in the race pace, and they're probably about third. So Charles, he was definitely disappointed, but he'll really need to try and get the jump on Max, I feel, if he stands any chance of winning the race.
Yeah, I agree. He'll have the inside line going down into turn one for Leclerc, which might give him a decent advantage if he can get off the line well. One thing that Red Bulls did seem to struggle with every now and then last year were their starts, and indeed Max Verstappen had a bit of a clunky practice start earlier on in the weekend, I think it's fair to say, which might well prove foreboding, who knows, because if you get a bad start, well, then you'll be absolutely hunted down. Ferrari car looks, and has looked throughout testing, more stable. And they have been focusing on their long-run pace over their one-lap pace, which they know is good. But you're right, it does seem like McLaren are right up there. But Mercedes, even Aston Martin, Alonso's done some pretty good long-run pace as well. So it's all about, for Leclerc tomorrow, the start and getting a good one versus Verstappen.
Well, let's hear from the Monegasque driver, Charles Leclerc, starting P2 for the Bahrain Grand Prix. Charles, your lap in Q2 could have been good enough for pole position this evening. Does that mean that you are going to be able to challenge Red Bull on a Saturday or a Friday, as we find ourselves here in Bahrain this year, or do you think it's too difficult every weekend for you to do that?
No, I think we were closer than what we expected to be today in qualifying, which is a good thing. However, obviously we need to wait and see for tomorrow, because this is the biggest question mark I have.
You were vocal on the radio saying you didn't agree with a decision that the team had made. What would you have done differently, and what will you be saying to the team tonight?
I thought that we had plenty of margin in Q1 to not go for a new soft, which I think will have changed quite a bit for Q3, having two new softs. But I also understand the team's point of view. That is the first race of the year. You don't really know exactly how much the track is going to improve, and so yeah, it's always tricky, and being the first race of the year, it's normal that we take a bit more margin. In my opinion, it was a bit too much margin. Is the way it is. We'll learn from it, and we'll keep working. It's a much better starting point compared to last year.
That feels like you understand the car already. You kind of have the confidence already to know what's possible.
Yes, exactly. No, the feeling with the car is really good, so that's good.
Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
That was Charles Leclerc, who'll start from P2 for the Bahrain Grand Prix, and he'll have breathing down his neck not just his teammate, Carlos Sainz, but also George Russell in the Mercedes. Now, Mercedes versus Ferrari. Mercedes won out in 2023 in terms of the constructors. How do we see that battle playing out in 2024? And if we put that into the race situation for tomorrow night's Bahrain Grand Prix, who's going to get off the line fastest? Who can challenge Max Verstappen the most this year, do you think?
Well, that is the question, and it's a question that I wish I could answer.
Get your crystal ball out, Alice.
Yeah, get my crystal ball out. Look, at the start of the weekend, we were all going, wow, where have Mercedes found this pace from? And they seemed really confident, and Lewis Hamilton seemed particularly confident.
Because they topped FP2, didn't they?
Yeah,
with Lewis and
exactly,
George 1-2.
Exactly, but Lewis was no way near where I expected him to be, and he's sort of been the happier of the driver compared to Russell, but Russell did a good job. He said to me that he was happy with his qualifying. They worked a lot on the car over the free practice sessions. George, he likes a fight. You know, George will always give it a go getting off the start, and usually George is pretty handy off the start. So he, like Charles, needs to get a good start if he stands any chance, I would say, of getting second place. I don't think Mercedes is fast enough looking at race pace to win the race. So yeah, we'll see. But in terms of who's the main challenger, it's too early to say.
George was joking in the media pen about how this season would be so exciting if you remove Max Verstappen from it. He said almost like, let's just park the fact that Max is here.
But this season?
Yeah, and P2 is going to be
last
like...
season.
And last,
and P2 is just going to be like the victory, really. So he's gunning for that P2 slot. I think he's almost discounting the victory, but... It's going to be interesting to see how he uses this new car. I'm going to call it a new car because they've gone in a totally different direction. It seems to be suiting him, doesn't it, George, rather than Lewis? I thought it was going to suit Lewis because I thought it had been designed around Lewis's wishes, Harry.
And that's what, we've been hearing whispers of Russell and Hamilton and, a little bit of friction between them. Russell constantly pointing out how this new car has been designed around Lewis Hamilton. But this is an important year for George Russell. He had a bad year last year, actually. When you look at it, qualifying he was pretty nip and tuck with his teammate Hamilton, but he was outraced and 100 points down coming the end of the year off his teammate. So he's got a bit of a point to prove this year and to try and get back on top. And it's also an important year because he's now got to cement himself as the leader going forward in that team, because we know Hamilton will be off to Ferrari, and he's got to be the one who makes those calls when it comes to setup, who's not afraid to sort of speak out and go, well, I'm your guy now, this is the direction I want to go in, and this is where I have to follow. When it comes to this track, let's not forget Russell can go quite well around here. If we go back a couple of years ago when he deputised for Lewis Hamilton at the Chequered Grand Prix, could have won it. Straight out of the box.
I still
missed
remember
pole by thousandths of a second.
We're not too far away from that area where he lay on his back and sort of cried.
No.
Was it crying?
With the helmet still on, or hand in his head for sure. So he's got some good and bad memories here, but he goes fast around here as well. So starting from third, he can see turn one. Wouldn't rule out a lunge down the inside.
Oh, you're going to be commentating on it. I can't wait to hear you
so.
call that. I spoke to George after I spoke to Lewis, and Lewis suggested that they'd gone in different setup directions. I put that to George Russell. Let's hear what he had to say.
I've got to be truly honest, I have no idea what setup direction he took or when, to be honest. I just focused on myself. And for me, that seems to work best. Just, you've got to focus on your weaknesses and... I guess I'll find out tonight, but I've been really happy with the car this weekend. It's been performing really, really well, and the good thing is I think at least yesterday the setup I had probably favours the race more than it does qualifying, so I was really pleasantly surprised with the P3 today. So tight with so many drivers, and anything can happen tomorrow.
So that setup you got for tomorrow, you're happy that you can fight for the win, maybe P2, and you're confident that this new direction that you guys have gone in is suiting your driving style?
Yeah, 100%. I think Bahrain's been a bogey track for us in the last 2 seasons, and to come here, first race of the year, lining up on the second row, P3, we've got a great chance to fight for a great result tomorrow, but we're not going to be naive to the fact that Red Bull are still down the road. They've got such a great platform. Max is obviously one of the greatest drivers ever, and they're going to cruise off to victory unless something holds them up, if they have a problem or something. But realistically, the fight's for P2. But the great thing is the fight is between probably 8 drivers for P2, and we've not seen that in a long time.
And just finally, the cars have been sparking quite a lot, your cars in particular. Are you feeling that in your body? Is that how you're purposefully running the cars very low to the ground?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, all of the drivers have been speaking with F1 because it is a little bit unsustainable to continue running the cars like this. You get the most amount of performance running the car as close as possible to the ground and as stiff as possible to the ground. So, you feel like your teeth are rattling out when you drive down the straight. And, to put some perspective in, it's the length of a AA battery is the distance we are from the ground to the car at the beginning, and by the end of it, it's the size of a chickpea from the ground. So every single tiny bump, it goes all through your body, and we probably hope for the next regulations of cars they find a better solution. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Some interesting comments from George Russell. He'll start P3 then for the Bahrain Grand Prix. We'll take a short break and then we'll look at the rest of the field. We're still here in the paddock at the Bahrain International Circuit. The lights are twinkling, people are starting to leave the track, but we are here. We're enjoying the music pumping out of the Red Bull garage. They're obviously feeling very excited that they've taken the first pole position of the year with Max Verstappen. We've spoken about the top three, Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, George Russell. Just on a general view there, I'm quite heartened by the fact we have a Red Bull, a Ferrari and a Mercedes in the top three, and it's the first weekend of the year. So that, for me, bodes quite well.
That's your win. Rosanna's happy with that. That's the win. We've got three different teams in the top three, which are, I agree with taking the positives. I'm with you. I'm with you, girl. I'm with you.
Turn that frown upside down, Harry Benjamin.
No, it's great. I just it will be Verstappen running away.
What is going
no,
on?
look, I've been trying to cling on to some sort of hope, but the more I dream, the more I those dreams get dashed. But
we're 3 days into the season, Harry. Come on.
Yeah, but I'm thinking of Hamilton and Ferrari in 2025.
Okay, well, if that keeps your hopes alive, then you hang on to that. So behind George Russell, it's Carlos Sainz in the second Ferrari, then Sergio Perez P5, ahead of Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin. A big gap between himself and his teammate Lance Stroll, who was back in P12. This time last year, we were all oohing and ahhing. We were all getting on that Aston Martin hype train. It's less of a hype train this year because it's almost expected that they should be right up there. They plateaued last year, though, Harry. How important is it that they really keep that momentum throughout this season? And is P6 enough to show that they are in a good place for the start of 2024 with Fernando?
I think it's enough for now, but that will very quickly wear thin. One place lower than last year for Alonso. And you're right, they went backwards in the development races. Others went dramatically forwards. They couldn't keep up. But I think maybe their huge jump in the off-season last year was almost too big of a jump, and they couldn't keep the consistency throughout the year. But Fernando Alonso has made comments and said, I'm paraphrasing here, that he doesn't believe that will happen again with Aston Martin. You know, they've had new investment over the winter. They've got a new facility, remember, in Silverstone, which is absolutely state of the art. And
it's mega. It's got even room for me to land my helicopter.
Yeah.
I've got 2 helipads.
I hear Fernando Alonso even has they've both got bedrooms there if they need to sort of stay overnight and be in the engineering rooms the next morning. Yeah, if it's a late flight or whatever, or they got to fly out from there early morning.
Just to be clear, I don't have a helicopter, if I did.
Oh, well, I just presumed you did.
Yeah.
And look, it's Fernando Alonso, 3-time winner around here. And the only man who raced that first race back in 2004. You can never rule Alonso out. Stroll, his teammate, again, just knocked out of Q3, wasn't he, out of the top 10. But he did look fast at times as well. So that Aston Martin does seem like it is generally a strong package. And Alonso's the man to get the most out of any car. So I think he'll move forward, if not staying where he is.
Well, he's got the 2 McLarens. That's okay. It's late. It is late. It's 10 o'clock here in Bahrain. I think Fernando will take heart from the fact he was able to out-qualify both the McLarens, Lando Norris behind him and Oscar Piastri in P8. So in terms of that battle, we know it's going to be between Aston Martin, McLaren, Ferrari, Mercedes. Fernando's ahead of the McLaren, so surely that'll be a good sign for Aston Martin as they sit in their engineering debrief this evening.
It's a good start. I mean, I'm sure, as Harry touched on, they would like to have been slightly higher up. But as you said, the times are really, really close. So I am really looking forward to the race tomorrow. I know we've been saying, Max is on pole, but I think that battle that we've got there, especially going with the qualifying times, it's super, super close.
So should McLaren be disappointed then that they're P8 and P9? They were expecting more, surely.
I would say, yeah, they will probably be slightly disappointed, but their race pace looks... Okay, the Red Bulls are the first, so they're the best of the rest in terms of race pace. So they will be looking certainly to move forward, keeping their nose clean going down into turn 1, of course.
The McLaren's also nice to take on some new power unit elements as well.
That was strange, getting an email
from
the FIA saying that he was taking on a new ES energy store and control electronics. I found that very odd. It's the first weekend.
And also that's worrying not only for McLaren, but for they take a Mercedes power unit, and that could be worrying for other Mercedes powered cars. So we're looking at Mercedes themselves, Aston Martin, Williams and McLaren. This early on, it's odd because they're in their practice sessions as well. At one point, Norris plumb last, Piastri plumb last. Look, there's clearly pace in that McLaren. Let's not deny that. I just think that at the moment, both drivers have been struggling to sort of put together a seamless lap, it seems. So there's always something that goes a little bit awry. So I think they're still understanding this McLaren and dialing it in. So we haven't seen exactly what they've got just yet.
Yeah, Oscar Piastri especially was saying that his first lap was shocking. His words, not mine. And then he's just not feeling as comfortable as he did yesterday. So going to be interesting to see how he gets on this year. Of course, he's no longer a rookie. He wasn't super happy with the car either. Said, was it because of him driving it differently, or was it the conditions? So yeah, an interesting one to keep an eye on, with Oscar having kind of raised Lando Norris's game, I think, last year. It's going to be interesting to see how the dynamic between those two drivers plays out in 2024. P9 then behind the McLarens is Lewis Hamilton. I think a bit of a shock. I know that obviously the performance is totally different to FP2, which was when Lewis and George finished P1 and P2, but Lewis telling me he'd gone in a different direction, and I think that might be because he wants to prioritise the race. Can't blame him. That's where the points are handed out. Let's hear from Lewis first, and then we'll discuss his potential come the Grand Prix. Lewis, what do you put the difference down to today between you and George?
I mean, George did a great job. I think for me, our setups were quite a bit different, and since I changed that overnight and I put it on this morning, and it was a struggle in P3, but I stuck with it because I felt that maybe it would be better for the race.
So have you compromised today in favour of Sunday?
I wasn't trying to qualify ninth today, of course. So yeah, it's going to be a challenge tomorrow from that position.
And do you feel a certain amount of pressure, given that the team have now designed the car around you, for it to perform?
No, the pressure's the same as any time you want to fight for a championship. I want to win.
So Lewis claiming they've gone in different directions, different setup directions, him and George Russell, his teammate. Is this the start of the dynamic slightly unravelling at Mercedes? We were wondering how it was going to play out. Of course, Lewis is going to be moving to Ferrari come 2025. He's going to be excluded from meetings almost certainly throughout the season. But they're already going in different directions, and George had been so straightforward in saying, no, I wasn't even looking at Lewis's setup. But Lewis knew he'd chosen to go in a different setup direction to George. What's going on there?
I mean, I think it was already, by the sounds of it, starting to unravel slightly on media day, from how the drivers were answering questions, how they were sort of acting regarding each other. Lewis, yeah, there could be a focus for the race, but I think, of course, he would have liked to have qualified much higher up, because that gives you a much better opportunity in the race instead of qualifying. Where did he end up? P9. Yeah, I've forgotten.
You remember the top three, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. P9. He would have much rather been up where George was. So I can't imagine he's gone, do you know what, we'll change it for the race and we'll forget about qualifying. No, I don't. That would be a crazy way. No, I'm sure that is not the reason. But he has been fast all weekend apart from really today.
And both drivers have thanked the team back at the factory for giving them a car that they can now fight with. Obviously George happier with it in qualifying, Lewis less so, I guess, in P9. It's just a weird one, because we sort of thought that Lewis had got his wishes and therefore he'd be right up at the sharp end, didn't we?
Yeah, but he's been positive coming out of that. I know Lewis is the ultimate player of the game and does it very well. But Andrew Chauvelin as well, the trackside engineer for Mercedes, has been saying, well, Lewis, all through the sessions, didn't really get a proper clear lap. And that could have held him back in outright lap time as well. We saw this bizarre thing going on with the pace of the cars coming out of the pit lane in every session. This is not a track really where you have sort of impeding going on too much. But clearly, I think they obviously feel that Lewis didn't get as clear laps as Russell did. And to reiterate, has he sacrificed a little bit outright pace today to try and move forward in the race tomorrow? It's the first Grand Prix of 24. I imagine a lot of people will be looking at this as just another extended almost testing session to really dial in their car and to get a better understanding, because each driver's only had, prior to this weekend, a day and a half each in the car, which is not a lot of time at all in these modern day ground effect cars. So Hamilton 9th will be a struggle, but two-stop strategy. See how long those tyres last for Hamilton. I think a podium might be a bit much, but top 6.
Okay. Well, he's only got to move forward a few places there, but
400.
Yeah, I'm hedging my bets.
Okay, cool. We know that he's been in the sim a lot more, which is something that he hasn't been doing. George even alluded to that. Lewis is doing way more sim work.
He's gathering all that info before.
Yeah,
Before
so
he goes,
true.
before he heads off.
So true. But George was sort of making the point, like, I've done that amount of sim work all the way along, and finally Lewis is doing the same. So that was quite interesting. Behind Lewis Hamilton, P10, sneaking into Q3, Nico Hülkenberg in
Round
the
of
Haas.
applause
Yeah.
once
Great job.
again.
Stand
However,
out.
I think that does not bode well because I don't think Haas have sorted their problems from last year. I think it's another case of Hülkenberg can pull a lap out, but he'll fall back in the race again.
And
sadly.
his teammate Kevin Magnussen down in P15. So it's a little bit like last year's.
Ironically, I think probably Magnussen will end up ahead of Hülkenberg in the race as per last year. So I hope it's not true, but it does seem like it's just 2023 repeating itself again for Haas.
Let's bounce through the bottom half of the grid then. Yuki Tsunoda just outside the top 10. Lance Stroll, we've spoken about P12. Alex Albon in the Williams, doing a good job with this Williams because it's been a complete overhaul. They're trying to sort of make it a more benign car, I guess. So it's not just performing on the fast circuits like Monza, for example. So he's got to get to grips with that, but to pull out a P13 was really good. Logan Sargent, his teammate, down in P18. So again, Alex just able to extract performance even with new machinery, Alice.
Definitely, and Sargent is one of those that's under pressure for his seat, and he said on the radio he just doesn't know what happened. It looked like he partly overdrove, turned in a little bit early here, or watching his onboard and making a couple of mistakes.
He's struggling with the tyres as well, and the rears especially,
Yeah, and we said numerous times on air that bringing in the tyres, that outlap is really, really crucial. So maybe still a little bit more work to do there. But yeah, he needs to start improving quickly because he is one of those drivers that's really under pressure for their seat.
And another driver who needs to be a little careful is Daniel Ricciardo, P14 for the Australian driver. His teammate Yuki Tsunoda up the road, P11. Again, I'd have thought it might have been the other way around, but Daniel really needs to watch out because people talk about him potentially even going in that revolving door at Red Bull and replacing Perez halfway through the season. If he's not able to out-qualify his teammate, that is not going to be happening, Harry.
No, and towards the end of last year, it was Tsunoda who on average was quicker than Ricciardo. Not by much, but was quicker. And so if this continues happening, I think Tsunoda is actually really maturing into a quick driver in Formula One. And if he keeps up these performances and Perez looks like he's going to be showing the door, then surely the rhetoric should be around Tsunoda going into that Red Bull number 2 seat.
Seen Liam Lawson knocking around there. I'm sure he'd have words with you on that one, Harry.
Well, if Tsunoda goes up there's an option for Liam, isn't there?
True, absolutely. Behind Daniel Ricciardo, it's Kevin Magnussen. We've spoken about the Haas. Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu, P16 and P17 respectively in Sauber. Not where they would have wanted to be. Doesn't really seem to have made a step on that car, and they seem to be struggling a little bit. Ahead of Logan Sargent, P18. We've spoken about him. And then the back row. The two Alpines, Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly. I think they were expecting it. I know, Alice, obviously, a little bit of a link with Alpine.
Should I take this one?
No, I'm happy to take it.
I think they were expecting that. Would that be fair to say that they haven't got the package to fight further up?
Yes, they certainly were expecting that, without a shadow of a doubt. It's a totally different car. Steering wheel is the only bit really that survived last year. Yeah, they're all a bit down, I have to say, at Alpine. But I spoke to one of the guys who actually said, well, we wanted to get within 2 seconds, and we're within 2 seconds. So he says, well, that in a way is an achievement. So they were, by the sounds of it, expecting to be even further off.
What target is that?
Yeah, not a great one. The car is nowhere near where clearly they want it to be.
So how long do we give them then, Harry? How long do they have to turn this around? We've seen in-season development like McLaren's last year. That was rapid and incredible, and it was fruitful. What do we give Alpine? Because they're not like a way down the grid team, are they? They've got resource.
They're one of the biggest constructors. Yeah. They should be in the top 6 at the very least.
Absolutely.
I mean, I was putting to a couple of people at Alpine, is this just, McLaren? This was McLaren last year, right? Right at the bat. But, 4 or 5 races in, big upgrade package, and you'll be right back up there. But a lot of them seem even quite pessimistic about that. They all look at McLaren and go, yeah, that just seems like it might have been a bit of a, almost like a freak incident. They just lucked in and it all clicked together for McLaren perfectly. So I'm hoping that's not the case for Alpine, and they will have a great rise of development, because the development race is going to be thick and fast this year. But they're almost starting from scratch again. The cars are overweight as well. I mean, all the cars are pretty much overweight, but Alpine's particularly overweight. And
You said that.
We'll just
Right,
move
I
on.
think.
Yeah, we'll just move on from that.
It's overweight.
And they've got 2 hungry drivers in that team who are desperate to be scoring for regular podiums at the very least, and they are so far off of that at the moment. Let's hope it's 4 or 5 races in, they start to come a little bit good. They've got pressure on them as well from not only back at Enstone, but Renault and the overall board as well. Bruno Faman is now permanent team principal.
Well, that's the thing. They're no longer rudderless, because last year they felt a bit rudderless, didn't they? We weren't really sure who was leading at the top. So that's sort of been put in place now. But I guess it just takes a while for that to sort itself out when it comes to on-track performance. But those 2 drivers, they're equally going to want to be able to put in performances so that other teams up and down the grid can say, oh, and Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly. So it's frustrating all round, Alice.
No, it is. It really is. Gasly not feeling as comfortable in the car compared to Esteban. But look, yeah, they are going to hope that they have something like McLaren had last year. Started off the season really poorly, nowhere near where they wanted to be. Bought some upgrades in, and then they boosted themselves further up the order. So of course, Alpine are going to hope that that's what's going to happen.
In terms of what we're hoping is going to happen this weekend, then give me your podium predictions. Is Max Verstappen going to hold on? Alpine 1-2, yeah. Let's reverse the grid. What are we reckoning then? Max Verstappen can hold on to this race victory easy peasy, or can Charles and George at least give him a bit of a challenge at the start and maybe even keep him a little bit in sight for the first few laps?
My prediction, Verstappen win, I'm afraid. I will put Leclerc second, and then I'll put Sainz third.
Oh, I was going to do that.
Yeah,
okay,
sorry.
I'll have another think.
Yeah.
Right.
Alice?
Okay.
I'm going to predict Verstappen wins by 15 seconds.
Oh.
I'm going to definitely listen back
We were
to
trying
this
to
if
do the
I'm
maths.
right.
No, we were trying to do the maths in the media pen. I think George was trying to do the maths, and he looked at his PR guy, Adam, and was like, 3/10 on however many laps it is. What is that? And Adam went, don't put me on the spot like that. And we're all trying to work out how far up the road he's going to be. Yeah.
So Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz. I think the podium.
Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz. Okay, so that's the same.
That's the same as I put. You agree?
All right, so
Yeah.
I've got to go.
So you've got to go different.
You've got to
Come on.
sorry.
Come on.
Okay,
I
I'm
usually
going
go
to go.
different, but it's not been working.
What about this then? Leclerc, George Russell, and Hamilton. Because
Where
This
did
is
that pick that
when you know
photo
it's
from?
time to
Has an
end the
incident.
podcast.
Yeah.
I tell you what, though, the Red Bull's not as reliable as it was.
There you go. See,
They've had
that's what I
problems
said.
in testing,
Yeah.
so honey,
it's happened
you
here
could
before,
be right.
hasn't it? The Red Bulls running out of gas to get to, well, not literally running out of gas, but not making it to the checkered flag.
And you never know of an incident around here. Turn 1 at Constantina's up, and we've seen some incidents there in the past. You can never rule it out. It's Formula 1. It's the pinnacle of motorsport, and anything can happen, and there's a reason to tune in across BBC Radio 5 Live.
That certainly is. Harry
Car
Benjamin.
salesman, mate.
Harry Benjamin, our lead commentator, and Alice Powell, racing driver and broadcaster. They'll be talking you through the race, the Bahrain Grand Prix, the first race of the 2024 season. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.